In this video, we will talk about quotient identities in trigonometry. So there are two quotient identities. The first is the tangent of an angle is equal to the sine of the angle over the cosine of the angle. The other identity is the cotangent of an angle is equal to the cosine over the sine. So notice these two are just opposites. So let's work through a couple problems knowing these quotient identities. Let's say we want to find the tangent of 135 degrees. So if we think about our unit circle, here's 0, here's 90 degrees, here's 180 degrees, and 270 degrees. If we were to draw the angle 135 degrees, it would look something like this, where it would land right about here, 135 degrees. So to find the tangent, it helps to first identify the reference angle. So remember, the reference angle is just the difference between where this angle lands and the x-axis. So to calculate that, we would just do 180 minus 135. So let's do that. 180 degrees minus 135 degrees is 45 degrees. So it helps if we can just first try to find the tangent of 45 degrees. So if you'll recall, the xy coordinates on the unit circle that correspond to 45 degrees are the square root of 2 over 2 and the square root of 2 over 2. So the tangent is equal to the sine over the cosine. So the cosine corresponds to this x value and the sine corresponds to the y value. So the tangent of 45 degrees is equal to the sine over the cosine. So the square root of 2 over 2 divided by the square root of 2 over 2. Well, since the numerator and the denominator are the exact same number, this whole thing will just simplify to 1. Now, to determine if this answer should be positive or negative, we can refer to this diagram, the ASTC, or some people like to remember as all students take calculus, and this tells us which trig functions are positive in each quadrant. So for 135 degrees, we're in quadrant 2 here. So this says S, only sine is positive in this particular quadrant. So that means tangent must be negative. So our answer down here is actually going to be a -1. So the tangent of 135 degrees is -1. That's our final answer. Let's try another example. Let's say we want to find the cotangent of pi over 3. So if we draw our unit circle, now we're working in radians. So here's 0, here's pi over 2, here's pi, and here's 3 pi over 2. So the angle pi over 3 would just be somewhere over here, pi over 3. Now, if we recall, pi over 3 corresponds to 60 degrees, and the xy coordinates for pi over 3, or 60 degrees, is 1/2, square root of 3 over 2. So we said that the cotangent is equal to the cosine over the sine. So the cosine at pi over 3 is the x value, so that's 1/2, divided by the sine is the y value, so that's square root of 3 over 2. So if we want to rewrite that, we can say 1/2 divided by the square root of 3 over 2. And remember, when we divide by fractions, that's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So 1/2 times 2 over root 3. So when we multiply, these 2's will cancel out. We'll be left with 1 over the square root of 3. And usually when we write fractions, we like to rationalize the denominator, which means we want to get rid of the square root sign. So the way we do that is multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 3. So when we do that in the numerator, we get square root of 3, and in the denominator, the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is just 3. So that is our final answer. The cotangent of pi over 3 is equal to the square root of 3 over 3. All right, let's try one more example. Let's say we want to find the tangent of -120 degrees. So if we think about our unit circle again, here we have 0. Now normally when we draw a positive angle, we would be rotating counterclockwise like this. But in this case, we have a negative angle. So we're actually going to be rotating clockwise in this direction. So if we think we went clockwise just a quarter turn, that would be -90 degrees. if we went all the way over here, this would be negative 180 degrees. So negative 120 would land somewhere out here. Negative 120. Now, it helps if we can find the reference angle. So remember, that's just the distance between our angle and the x-axis. So the difference between 180 and 120. So what would that be? That would just be 60 degrees. So let's work with 60 degrees as our reference angle. So we'll say the tangent of 60 degrees. And remember, our xy coordinates for 60 degrees on the unit circle are 1/2 and square root of 3 over 2. So we said that tangent is sine over cosine. So let's write sine over cosine. So the sine of 60 degrees, that's the y coordinate. So square root of 3 over 2. And we're dividing that by the cosine. So the cosine of 60 degrees is 1/2. So let's write it over here, have a little more room. Square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2. So when we divide fractions, we can rewrite it as multiplying the reciprocal. So we'll get the square root of 3 over 2 times 2 over 1. So when we multiply, these 2's cancel out, and we're left with square root of 3 over 1, or just the square root of 3. And recall, we're in quadrant 3 over here because our original angle is negative 120. So if we refer to our ASTC diagram, this tells us that tangent is positive in this quadrant. So our answer will remain positive. We don't have to change anything there. So that's our final answer. The tangent of negative 120 degrees is the square root of 3.